Hello everyone, my name is Genjo Jebejoğlu, and you'll notice that the hardest part of our presentation tonight is going to be my name. It's Genjo Jebejoğlu, and my last name, here's a fun fact, literally means son of a gun. Really does. Okay, so moving forward, since we only have 20 minutes to cover UI UX design, and why are my fonts not showing up? Okay. Okay, that is kind of ironic, isn't it? Okay, well, I guess it's an iterative process. You learn. So, actionable UI UX design for all. This is really weird, by the way. I have no idea why it looks like this. I've checked it just on my computer now. Anyways. So, what does it really mean, UI UX design? User interface and user experience design is basically the full name, as we all know. I put an asterisk here referring to it's not let's make it pretty after we finish the backend. This probably happened to all of you guys when you go to a meeting pitching UI UX design. Anybody does UI UX design specifically here? Can I see some hands? One. That's all. Okay, two. Good. Okay, so maybe you don't do this. But when I go to a meeting to sell UI UX design, one of the pushbacks I get is, you know what, let's talk about it later. Don't worry about it now. We'll just spend our money on finishing our prototype and then we'll talk to you. Which really is the complete opposite. What UI UX design really is, it's a collaborative and iterative journey to optimize the interactions between users and digital products, services, websites, which done right ends up involving both parties in the process. It aims to solve shifting user needs with the least amount of friction through intuitive interaction and emotional engagement while ensuring the business objectives are met. Is it a new concept? Has it been around before? Why is this any different than user-centric design that's been around for the past, who knows, 15 years? It definitely shares a lot of components with that concept, but it also brings in some other disciplines and methodologies into the mix. For example, industrial design. We always have the iterative process, the rapid prototyping that applies to UI UX design, right? Agile development, the breaking of silos, collaboration, which ends up creating less documentation, more collaboration, shared vision. Quantitative and qualitative research. This is one of the backbones of UI UX design, since you really need to understand your audience before the project, during the project, and after the project. CRO. A lot of awesome speakers today talked about this part already, so I'm not even going to be redundant. Product, content, marketing strategy. Again, UI UX design borrows a lot of elements from these methodologies and thinking. Branding, we just had two great speakers talk about branding and visual identity design. UI UX design is responsible for making sure those brand values and elements are brought forward in the design. Interaction design and graphic design are the obvious ones, where you really need to make sure your flows make sense, your wireframes are capturing a flawless journey for the user. The graphic design aspect comes in heavy when it's UI design time, user interface design time, with elements such as textures, typography, colors, anything that really is the soul of the whole platform. Here are some key concepts. Collaboration and breaking of silos. I just mentioned this one. This is really key because I cannot stress enough. If you take away one thing tonight from my presentation is this is not a designer-only activity. It involves everyone who has insightful contribution to the project to be present. It could be a marketer, it could be developers, it could be designers, it could be people who do professional research. Breaking of silos definitely helps, and it actually creates less need for documentation and more of a shared vision for the team. Most of my great ideas, not even my great ideas, but ideas that were great in the projects that we did, I would have to say were triggered by our developers' insightful suggestions. So I cannot stress that enough. We replace biases and egos with empathy and real data. Let's face it, we all have egos and biases, some big, some small, but they're there. And if we do not realize that and start making assumptions as if they're facts, we're doomed. And this happens, trust me. Like, I remember doing a project for, the name of the project was Dagu, and it was for a university where we were actually presenting to nurses. Here's a big problem. The research was done prior to us starting, and there was, of course, there's a huge deadline that we were pushing for. So what got missed in that process was the fact that the nursing population in Canada right now is I believe, 2/3 over 50. So at that point, what we forgot to do is really start taking into consideration some of their constraints, and it was very humbling to watch how they struggled with our the proposed solution that we had that we thought was perfect. And then we went back and iterated. This will happen as many times as necessary during a project. Ongoing iteration and validation equals optimization, which is what you're aiming for. So here's what that optimization cycle looks like. Two things to pay attention to in this slide, guys, is that nothing is happening in silos. Everything is overlapping. And there's one big circle in the middle in pink, which is supposed to be the continuous testing and collaboration. That never stops. Has to keep happening. Okay, sounds great. So why should my business care? I actually had this question. Someone came to me a year and a half ago. Someone came to me after my presentation and asked me, okay, this is really noble, great. You really care about the user, but how exactly it helps my business? Well, all we have to do is look at examples like Google and Apple, right? What does Apple do? Through better UI UX design, basically they're able to get more referral, better conversion, better retention, utmost brand loyalty, even when they charge the competition, offering more than the competition, offering similar features. And if you're the kind of person who really relies on data to make these decisions, here are some useful pieces of data from 2013, which shows, oh, sorry about that, which clearly shows that your competition is doing it. There's no doubt about it, and the users are expecting it. 8 out of 10 client-side respondents stated that their company was extremely or quite committed to delivering the best online user experience. So that shows you right there that the competition is on top of it. More than 9 out of 10 agreed that the statement that good user experience just makes sense, right? So more and more people are just expecting this from your solution. Research and strategy. This is the part where you actually start the project and frame your assumptions. And they're always assumptions. There are no facts at this point, really, other than the data that you purchased or you had from your previous solution that you collected. Everything else is an assumption. So we create a problem statement, right? What is a problem statement? In my worksheet, I included a template. Basically, what we try to do at this state is, to give you an example, we had a company who was designing a product that teaches kids how to play instruments by giving them real-time feedback. So the problem statement there was, the goal of our platform is to get kids to practice music without attaching a MIDI cable to their computer to actually measure their performance. And then we actually assign certain metrics to understand how we can measure this success rate on this problem statement. Once we have that problem statement, we actually jump into creating assumptions, because every problem statement is loaded with assumptions, right? There's business assumptions, there's user assumptions, and again, there's a sheet included in your worksheet to start coming up with those for your business. So once you frame your assumptions in terms of who the user is, what they're really trying to do, what's going to be the biggest features for your platform, you take those assumptions and then you prioritize them. You say, here are the really high-risk ones, and out of those really high-risk ones, meaning if I don't get this right, this platform just won't solve the problem that I was trying to solve. And then you actually look at the knowns and unknowns. Do I know this? Do I not know this? Do I have enough data on this? If not, those are the ones that you should be testing out first. And then based on those assumptions, again, you create your proto-personas. These are personas that are still in assumption phase. So they're not, you don't know 100% that these are the people exactly that you're going to be selling to. Unless, obviously, again, you had previous data or you actually purchased data. So per persona, you want to identify who they are, their names. their habits. What do they do in their day-to-day life? What kind of brands do they respond to? What kind of other technological solutions do they use? That could be related directly to your solution or not, to understand the conventions that they are used to in their life. Also, their technological constraints. As in my example, if someone's over a certain age, chances are they are not really using tablets or really smart devices. So then you create a functionality list. Sorry, one thing I missed is the interviews. Interviews is a really key part of this whole thing. You actually reach out, you create an interview document where you actually start asking questions related to these assumptions. And at this point, you do not ask them any leading questions. You only try to actually understand, you're trying to make them tell you what their problems are with some of these issues that you're trying to solve without telling them, here you go, this is my solution, do you want it? That kind of leading question usually does not generate any reliable answer. And then you try to leverage existing data from all possible channels. You conduct your competitive landscape analysis, looking at other solutions. Then you actually combine all of this data and start coming up with an actual functionality list for your MVP, your minimum viable product. And then you jump into the interaction design phase. Again, always with the user in mind. What are some of the most direct, intuitive, and engaging ways for each one of these key flows, these key scenarios to be performed without forgetting your business needs, such as if you need to make a sale, obviously it needs to end with that. You aim to create a logical hierarchy for the content. And don't forget the human factors like the iFlow. And I think just a minute ago we were hearing that the iFlow is really important, and the hierarchy of content can really make or break the experience of a user. Include developers, subject matter experts, designers, and start sketching ideas. Again, I cannot stress enough how important it is to start this sketching exercise with everyone involved. So create a paper prototype. The reason I'm mentioning a paper prototype rather than an HTML one or something done in, I don't know, InDesign or Axure is because we want everyone to be hands-on involved in this, regardless of their technical levels. Inform each other in terms of capabilities, limitations, conventions. If one person has a piece of the puzzle, he or she needs to actually communicate that to the rest of the group. Be open to the use of new technology, improve engagement and narrative. To improve engagement and narrative, this is where you start having different options, right? You say, this is one way of handling something, a piece of the puzzle, by using this piece of technology. Let's say for a gallery site that we did, we had to create an HTML canvas drawing tool because we could not use Flash anymore. And the people actually needed to, in a very engaging way, understand surrealist drawing, the thinking behind surrealist drawing styles that Jacques MacDonald, the Canadian painter, actually was teaching back in his day. So in order to create that, first they were saying, let's create a step-by-step approach to tell the people, okay, you know what, close your eyes and draw, right? And then we said, why don't we create an HTML5 canvas application that actually lets you perform this whole thing intuitively on the site, which really ended up being a very useful tool for the kids. So recommendations like that usually comes from your development team more than anyone else. And again, you cannot forget about technology habits, limitations of your user. If they're on a computer that they have no access to HTML5, then it's a problem. Then as a team, you have to critique ease of use, seamless fit to their current life, conventions, and devices target audience is used to. Extensibility, nomenclatures, taxonomy. So these are basically the terminology used in the site for anything that you have. Your navigation, your call to actions. Does the terminology make sense? Does it resonate with your user? Do they understand it? Taxonomies, the actual groupings of the information in the site. Is that organized in a way that your audience will expect it to actually consume? Here's a wireframe that we created for a university project for students to collaborate and easily understand. These are all different activities happening in a classroom, and the biggest one representing basically the most amount of activity happening, and right away we make that tile larger. It already is pretty obvious that you can click on it and go to that conversation and start being part of the most popular conversation. So interface design with developers. At this point, what we're trying to do is we're trying to ensure our interface design resonates, engages, and does not add elements for the sake of decoration. Visual impact is, yeah, I mean, when I say visual impact, I don't mean if you need to make, it's a travel site and you're using images that show you Costa Rica. That's great, you need that visual impact. But you should not put that photo in there unless there's a clear reason for it. A great designer once said, perfection is achieved when there's nothing left to add. So not there's nothing left to add, but when there's nothing left to take away, which is a very key element in UI UX design. Your color choices, typography, shapes, textures, eye flow, contracts to create the hierarchy, and photography, video to tell the story, combined with your brand elements, are a very critical part of the UI design process. And of course, every little decision that you make, every little detail that you put on the page, you are creating a new convention in the site. And it has to be recorded in a GUI library for consistency's sake and easy extensibility if you're not the person doing it down the road. Someone just can open this file and take the conventions and keep going. This was a login page for that platform that we created for the university students to collaborate. And once you logged in, this is your dashboard. And if you click on one of those classes, your courses at the top right, top left corner, it would take you to this tile view page, which is basically the wireframe that you guys saw before. And we had great results with this one, actually. So testing and feedback. This is the last part of the puzzle, really. Some quick action items for testing and feedback would be constant user testing with right users for right questions. What do I mean by that? Once you've determined your personas, you have to make sure all your questions are crafted for that scenario that your persona is actually going to be performing. A/B or ABN testing on your site and platform is also very important. A lot of bigger brands do that. Even Google used to do it for years, right? They would put a search button, remove the search button for a while, put it back in, just to see which one will perform better with people. Nowadays, there's a lot of tools on the internet that you can use to make this happen. Heat map tracking with online tools. So there's a lot of simulators right now. This used to be all done in labs, real time, and currently even we talked about it today, you can go online and really get a simulator to create this for you. I'd still say it's not as accurate as getting it done for real, but it's definitely a much cheaper way to get a high level understanding. There's a lot of free analytics reporting out there, which everyone talked about today. You can look at your bounce rates. You can, again, test your paper prototype with people, monitor search logs, support emails, reports from your search marketing company, find patterns in user feedback forms. Is everyone always having problems with a certain aspect? Pick up the phone and call your users who reported these issues to really understand what they had trouble with. Once again, guys, UI UX design is not a visual designer only activity. It's for everyone in the team, including but not limited to researchers, developers, marketers, subject matter experts, and users even. Here are some useful resources that I really like, and we actually use a lot of these in our work. First book, Lean UX, from Jeff Godelf and Josh Seaton. It's an excellent book. I would recommend it to anyone who's interested in UI UX design. It's a light read. It's very well written. Designing for Emotion. And Don't Make Me Think. It's an oldie but a goodie by Steve Krug. Some of the websites that I always go to: Quora, Elixapart, UX Mag, Johnny Holland, Smashing Magazine, UX Stack Exchange, UX Matters, UX Booth. Again, perfect for anyone who wants to get into UI UX design. Prototyping tools. If you guys don't want to do paper prototypes, and I just gave paper prototyping as a perfect example for today because I wanted people who are not necessarily designers or developers to be able to just jump in and start doing these things when you go back. But for prototyping, some of the things that we use, Axure, InDesign sometimes, After Effects, and even Edge for HTML5 simple prototypes. Wireframing tools, again, Axure, OmniGraph on Mac, Balsamiq for quick mockups, InDesign and Illustrator are very useful. Any testing analytics, some really cool ones were mentioned today. In addition to those, CrazyAg does a really good job of mouse tracking the activity on the site and creating a heat map for you. Only problem is it doesn't work with your mobile apps. Optimizely, great A/B testing platform. Fangui is one of the simulators for heat map tracking. If you can just upload a screenshot and it will tell you this would be the iFlow on it. Tapalytics is A/B testing for mobile apps. Onbounds, Google Contacts Experiments, I think already mentioned today, and Google Analytics, everyone already knows. Yep, so that's it, guys. Thank you very much for listening. If you have any further questions, this is my contact information. Thank you.